Let's go. Yeah. How's it going? How's it going? Just trolling Twitch, seeing what I catch. Not following Amaranth. I should Wow, her live stream connection is really bad. Mine probably wouldn't be much better. Just a little bit of playing around. Let's see. There we go. There's IRI. Oh, Amaranth has unlimited IRL. She uses IRL.net. I met the IRL.net Unlimited IRL people at TwitchCon. They're pretty cool. Got a great product. Hopefully hook them up with some very significant business partnerships in the future. I think it'll be worth it for them. Echo should not be listening. Echo, stop. What is with this device? Why is it flashing? I'll fix you. Not dropping frames, so it's not internet. Cameraman action. Anyways, watching another stream sort of in the background. I'm having a chill stream. Just hanging out, playing some grinding games. Going out to dinner later. Got going to attend an event tomorrow. Hopefully will be fun. There'll be some Seattle Friends of Fission activism. Looking forward to that. What am I going to be able to do in this game? How long till I hit 10 million Romulan rep? It'll be a couple days, that's for sure. Wick is streaming. Oh, this is a prime card debate. Oh no, it's from Experiment. Nice. Wick has a spicy panel. This is very spicy. Oh boy. Shed Logic has stepped in it today. Boy. Well, yeah. Oh, I actually hate this panel now. Boy. Alright, how about we listen to this together?
We don't have that language. And so when somebody tells you, yeah, that sucks, they'll either do one of two really damaging things: talk about the time they were struggling and how they're fine, or talk about, yeah, this is normal, this is life, and be incredibly unhelpful. That's
Okay,
it.
if I
That's
could-
the problem I'm
wait,
seeing.
can I
It has
address-
Can I
everyone.
give you a comparison group? Okay, if we want to talk about marginalized groups and mental health care, that's something that I know a lot about. So like if you don't mind, I want to make a comparison. Nobody would sit down and tell an indigenous person that there isn't marginalization and systemic problems in the mental health care delivery and say it by saying nobody's telling you not to go get therapy. Of course people are saying indigenous people could go get therapy. The issue is that typically therapists who treat them are white and have no understanding of their culture, and so there's massive cultural gaps that the client has to basically catch their therapist up on to even understand their worldview. There's also a lot of systemic stuff. For example, they might not feel comfortable with a white counselor or the institution itself because they've been actively harmed by this institution for a long time. When you look, for example, at incels, it is obviously not the level of oppression that indigenous people have experienced, but they report very similar struggles. For example, their therapist typically is a woman who has no conception of their experience or the culture or the problems that they're coming from. And the humanities as an institution itself is deeply biased and hateful against these groups. And this is shown in the literature. It is shown in the research that's being
Is that
done
true?
on these groups.
Is
of
that
course they're
actually
having a hard
true?
time finding good therapists. Their therapists don't
I'm not
understand their
sure.
issues because most therapists are women who don't
I think
understand
my side
incels
chain needs to
and
be more
feel
aggressive.
uncomfortable with them, which is fucking fair, by the way. And
Let's
also,
do-
the actual institution itself doesn't care about this group and is actively villainizing them
How about this
within
one?
research itself.
Okay, I do want to give other people
Yep.
a chance to get into
Can
it.
I-
I've been waiting. Kevin, I know you are.
Yeah.
Prime, then you will go exactly after that. So Prime will get a chance to speak, and then you, Kevin, can respond as well.
I'm
And Kevin, if
listening,
you
I'm
have
just
a
gonna-
Kevin, if you have a camera, I can't see you if you're raising your hand. Is the issue?
No, that's fine. Because my camera's through my OBS, so it can't go through the Discord. Sorry.
Kevin doesn't know how to
So Prime,
stream.
then Kevin, and then we'll get other people in here.
You could just turn off your camera in OBS, and then you can use the Discord and then
I
capture.
know I fucking can. I know I can. Yeah.
Oh,
Alright.
okay. I'm sorry. I just
I'm
wanted to.
only playing. You're alright.
So I'm glad that our friend Erudite gave us that data about like the group of like incels and like what they experience and the I guess the various ways in which they face mental health troubles. Right. It's useful to mention, a lot of these people are neurodivergent, right? There's a high population
Way to troll Chud Logic on his stream.
individuals. Okay, great. That's something I can work with. Right? Like a neurodivergency, the people who are neurodivergent are within a marginalized group, I think. I think we can look at that and address that separately. When we make incels into a quote-unquote marginalized group, that implies they need some sort of special treatment, that there is something beyond simply providing great mental health care and support and counseling that society needs to do, right? And as we do with other marginalized groups, right, we listen to them. We listen to them and we take their wants seriously, right? I mean, if we want to create a more equal society, what incels are asking of us is plainly ridiculous, right? That's what Stabby is trying to get to. That.
What are incels asking for? Enlighten us.
Sure. Okay. Well, there are plenty of incels who are asking for equal access to female genitalia.
Okay,
Right?
how many are asking for that? What data have you got to back that up?
Brain cells.
Going into incel
Brain
forums
cells?
and,
What?
like, looking at
Right,
into the various.
Well, we're
This is
talking
the
about the
problem,
online
is like
ones.
making their desire
Sorry.
for and inability to find companionship sound like this ridiculous, insane straw man list of requests based on a few online memes.
That's not like a few online memes, and beyond that, right? Like that, and if it's not, well, then great, then that works for my point any which way, right? So even if
But
it's not,
listen, mate.
and there's literally no
Fine.
reason. There is no. I won't listen to you because I'm fucking talking, Chud. Don't you understand that? See, I'm a man, so don't try and interrupt me. Thank you.
I never
So,
speak over a marginalized voice. Go on.
Yeah, of course. I like Chad. So,
Yeah, we're British anyway, the ultimate people of colour. Let's go.
Oh boy.
If they're not asking for anything in particular, then another reason not to pay attention to them as a quote unquote marginalized group, right? Marginalized group, I think, is something that that term is something that has meaning and weight in our society, and it's being cheapened by this idea that this group is being oppressed by who exactly? Is it by women? I don't think anyone here would agree with that, right? Is it by society? Well, society, maybe you can make a case for that, but society is treating them like that because of their neurodivergent behavior instead of being understanding for them. We started off this conversation by saying we should be understanding to them. We should be empathetic to these individuals, as we should with anyone. Right? But to say that they are some sort of marginalized group that deserves any support of special attention, right, beyond the U.S. In case where I'm coming from, where the U.S. building out its mental health care industry and giving better access to that is plainly fucking ridiculous.
Okay. I
just want to quickly say to respond, because listen, Prime, I see where you're coming from. I guess my concern is that I worry that what we're doing is we're engaging in essentially the online meme of the worst of what an incel is, state-mandated girlfriends, right? Of course, there's people out there that are saying shit like that. But I mean, I don't know the data in any way near as much as Erudite does. But I would be surprised if that would be a preponderance of incels that are saying we need state-mandated girlfriends. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that there's probably more realistic things that people have got in mind that they're actually looking for. I agree that I think the healthcare thing is, of course, a fantastic thing, to look towards. But for me, it's well, what's the in-between? Because America's not going to have state healthcare anytime soon. So is there anything that can be done in the meantime? And my perspective is there anything the left can do to promote ideas that are going to help these people and give them something to bite into so they don't end up listening to the red pill shit and going down a totally crazy path?
It seems, though, that all your advice can be copy and pasted just for neurodivergent people in general, or people who are depressed, right? We should have more.
There's more complicated things going on. I agree. People. Okay, what about where race and neurodivergency intersects? So you've got, say, an Indian man who's autistic, right? I think that's a very unique intersection. Indian men are perceived in a very negative way in the dating market. If you're also neurodivergent, that creates an intersection of basically hopelessness. The Bobs and Virginia have basically ruined dating for Indian men for a generation. I'm memeing a bit, but in all seriousness, yeah, there's a very negative perception. Add neurodiversity on top, it just seems like there's an intersection that seems almost insurmountable. And how do we deal with that? I don't even know if I've got the answer, but I just think there's a lot more complexity to this than just a couple of dudes asking for state-mandated girlfriends.
Doug's actually hitting on a really, really important part of this conversation too, is the need to bifurcate between how we address the incel population that we have now and how we proactively improve the trajectory of our population so we don't have more and more people identifying with these groups over time and a larger share of the population, because obviously it's a growing problem. I think to say it's not a growing problem is a silly dismissal of the isolation and increased atomization of online culture. We know that this is a unique and increasingly problematic part of the way we engage with social media and the way we engage with technology, and that COVID made it a lot worse. So we need to engage with both parts of that conversation.
We need to let other people in here a little bit, right? Kevin's been waiting. You gotta let Kevin in. Kevin,
get your camera up, bruh. I don't know what to tell you. Put your hand up.
True. Well, no, I don't mind wait. It's not a problem. I was going to just address a couple of points that I think Not So Erudite was making, and I think your studies sound really interesting. If you could send those to me, that would actually be quite interesting to read, I think. But within what you were saying, I think is the interesting point that whether it be neurodivergence or mental illness or any of the other factors, those are the things for which those people would be parts of oppressed groups. Inceldom in of itself isn't a cohesive enough social or political grouping to be considered an oppressed group as far as I'm concerned. I think what you're doing is bringing in these disparate factors to inceldom within the individual incel and saying that it's the inceldom that's part of the marginalization, which I don't think is
one question,
necessarily
Kevin?
True. Yeah, of course you can, yeah.
Sure. How many terms for groups do we use and adopt as pejoratives in cultural parlance? Incel is used as an insult. and it's got a cultural connotation that it must be a bad and undesirable state, and obviously it is. I don't think people identify with. So isn't there a certain level of cultural oppression that happens immediately as a consequence of adopting a term that identifies a group of people as an insult?
Well, social I don't know that oppression, like, there's a difference, I think, a fundamental substantive difference between being mocked and being oppressed. And I think actually the second point I was going to make to what Erudite was Erudite was saying, the comparison to indigenous people, and I accept that they were saying that clearly indigenous people are more marginalized and more oppressed, so I'm not trying to equivocate, but I think the comparison is apt in one respect, that there were specific laws enacted against indigenous people. There was genocide enacted.
Is anyone else tired of this debate? I think I might be. Blah, blah, blah. Men feel oppressed, so they're going to make a group, and then we're going to try to psychoanalyze them, and then they're going to say, oh, you're not actually talking about my group, you're talking about another group. Kind of over it. That was Death of Certainty's stream listening in, so I'm a bit tired of it. If you want to talk to me about this topic, I'll be happy to talk about it. Or, as is in the title, green anarchism is liberal. It is liberalism. It is the selling of a lifestyle choice as a solution to climate change. So what are you actually achieving when you're a green consumer, or a Ann Prim, or some other kind of eco lifestylist? Is this a climate solution, or is it making you feel good about what you could be doing? Yeah. So that's my that's where I'm at with this. My general feeling is that, well, we best leave climate solutions to scientists, because that's where we can collectively act and organize around solutions. Should we do some reacts? Maybe I'll bring up a YouTube or 3. I should find that. There it is. I have too many windows now, and I've lost the stream that I just muted, and it's running in the background. That's not it. Help me find the tab. No. Don't actually need to help me. It's here somewhere. And we'll look for whatever's using the most CPU. There it is. I must have closed it. Yep. I'm gonna crunch a bit. Well, let's find that video, a video to react to. I see Destiny streaming on YouTube. Well, this is
So
just
this
generally
little
interesting.
single board computer might very well be the thing that turns my Raspberry Pi into a piece of decor. Hello everybody, this is Tekka. In this video, what we are going to be doing is taking a look at the Zima board. You may be wondering what makes this thing so special and how dare I degrade the almighty Raspberry Pi. Well, first, let's talk about the hardware. On the outside, we have two standard USB 3s, display out, and we have dual Ethernet. A little bit more on that later. Now, where this thing gets special is just about everything else. Taking a look at the back, we have two SATA ports allowing for additional hard disk or SSD expandability, which I do see some true NAS potential there. And what might be the most fascinating decision by the creator of this is the port right here on the side. This is a PCIe port, which allows for even more expandability and options. Specifically, this has 4 PCIe lanes, so you should be able to plug in capture cards, audio cards, network cards, Thunderbolt expansion cards, TV tuners, and more. Now, what I just plugged in here is an NVMe expansion card, in which I plugged in a Kingston 256GB SSD, and this little expansion alone added 8 times the original storage. And speaking of the original storage, what is actually in this thing? Well, there are 3 models ranging from $120 to $200 USD. The model I have here is the 832 or 8 gigs of RAM and 32 gigabytes of eMMC storage. For the CPU, we have a quad-core Intel Celeron processor with a base clock of 1.1 gigahertz with a turbo up to 2.2 gigahertz. The lower end configuration will have a dual-core Celeron with a slightly higher clock speed. Now, this isn't anything crazy when it comes to power, but for the size and what we'll be able to use this for, it's definitely no slouch. So this thing ships with a Linux distro called Casa OS. In the simplest terms, it's a Debian system that features Docker pre-installed and a beautiful web dashboard for you to easily manage your containers from anywhere on your network. Now, if you want to see my complete overview of Casa OS, I made a whole separate video featuring this board, so go ahead and check out that video down below. Now, what I'm going to do is go ahead and wipe Casa OS from the system. What I'm going to be doing is testing its capabilities with Proxmox and spin up some virtual machines. Proxmox is arguably the very best way to manage your virtual machines with all the specs, provided I should be able to spin up 1 or 2 machines, giving both of them 2 cores to work with. So I ran through the basic installation process. Proxmox is very easy to install. If you need a full guide and tutorial on that, I have a whole separate video. But now that Proxmox is installed, we could go ahead and boot into the dashboard. But first, we must thank these. You can get a $100 Kingston NVMe SSD that I was intending on using, was not compatible with the PCI little extender card I had, so I'm using a Western Digital instead. And 2, Proxmox is not a fan of being installed on eMMC memory or SDs or anything like that, so Proxmox is installed directly onto that Western Digital drive. With that, I did get Proxmox installed, so we're going to go ahead and log in, and there are 2 things that we are going to do to be able to, or what I'm going to do to test this. 1, we're going to create a container and install Pi-hole in it, and 2, we're going to create a virtual machine with a Fedora Cinnamon, which I downloaded here, and kind of just test the general speed and snappiness of it, just to make sure that this is up to date. The template I'll probably cover on this channel to let's do 2004 just to make sure that it's and the cool thing about we're going to go Pi-hole because that is the only thing that we're going to dedicate to this specific container. Template, we're going to go with that Ubuntu 20.04 container. Next, for disks, local LVM is fine. The disk size, let's up this to something like 32. Just give us a little bit more. The really cool thing about these containers is if we go over to summary here, we can see right now it's using almost none of the CPU, that's expected. But on boot, it's only using 34 megabytes of the 4 gigabytes of RAM and just under a gig of total boot disk size. Absolutely fantastic. So here, let's add a apt update. And the boot speed on this is just crazy quick with these containers. There we go. We have the 40 IP address. So that's going to be important to know for a Pi-hole. Go over here. It's using about. So what we could do is go to the local volume right here, and under ISO images, let's go ahead and upload one because I already have it downloaded. Let's give this 64 for now. The other half, so Zowie. All right, so there we go. We are now. Yep, it's fairly responsive. It is running through VNC, so it's not going to be perfect. And this board really isn't meant to do this. I'm just kind of testing some of its capabilities here. If we go over to the entire board, we can see its entire CPU usage is about 45% running all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and shut it down for now. Let's say yes. And it's going to process that. And Pi-hole is still running good with a ridiculous amount of been up probably. I'm just running small containers option, and say there's much more examples such as in industrial use case for this device, and it doesn't in there. On the website there's much more examples such as in industrial embedded projects. They have some badass examples of using this board on a remote control helicopter with AI recognition technology. Scary but cool nonetheless. Now what I'm going to be doing with this device on a permanent basis sooner rather than later is turning this into my network's modem with pfSense.
Pretty interesting project. Zima board. Specifications. Here we are. It's okay. It's a Windows thumb drive, except it has a PCIe. 6 watts is a little more than most of those. Actually, no. That's 12 volt half amp. Yeah, that's USB power. It's actually pretty cheap. It's a good price. All right. Gonna do a little more Star Trek grinding. Yeah. What else is there out there today? Go through some nuclear videos, maybe? Space commune? Should I comment? I should comment on the space commune stuff. Oh no, it's about Ukraine. Why would I do this? We gotta find a better video. Okay, this sounds like a good video that's... Yeah.
So I just wanted to point out some of the links in this article, explore some of the links, because they're fun, you know, they're kind of fun. So I talked about in the speech my history of
The Green Fascism of Mark Ruffalo and Pete Seeger.
About 18, 19 years old. So my whole adult life I've lived here. And it's been interesting to watch and learn the history of this area, because it did used to be like an industrial area that used to produce things, and it's pretty base to learn about that history. So this conservation group is one of these like degrowth Malthusian groups that, you know, wants to shut down energy facilities and degrow, like Scenic Hudson they're called. They're really bad. What sucks is they make like these beautiful parks, and like I go to their parks a lot because they're like really nice, but they also like do it like they do that as PR, right? They have to have some good with the bad, right? But so they turned this former cement, Rosendale Cement. So Rosendale Cement was like a big deal here. And in this article, it talks about how the mixture created at Rosendale Cement, a world-renowned material used to build the base of the Statue of Liberty, the Brooklyn Bridge, and one of the wings of the United States Capitol. And like, I did not know that until I looked this up. But that is so fucking cool. That gives me like so much pride, right? Like to think that my area, we produced things that contributed to literally building our country. And that's an amazing thing. Imagine if the United States could go back to that. Imagine how many jobs we could have if we were still, you know, creating, you know, doing like cement factories, things like that. And it's a sense of pride that we have. But now, I mean, this is like so poetic that this group that has helped shut down Indian Point nuclear plant and is now creating this like park where people, and I'm sure it's like, you know, well, we were at this park, right? This is the one where they have like a fancy hotel there too. There's a fancy hotel for rich people. I mean, it's a nice park, but they should have like factories and houses and buildings. I mean, it's sad. It's just sad that they get rid of our industry and replace it with just nature worship.
Not entirely on board, but not really dissuaded from this either. It's a good point. I feel a little sussy about sort of the worship of the past. Just not feeling the, oh, our capitalism, our nation did all this great stuff, and now they're trying to destroy our traditional values, which is
nature worship and like, you know, luxury hotels. Another thing, somebody replied to me about Pete Seeger. They didn't like that I took a shot at Pete Seeger in my speech. And the thing is, like, I know Pete Seeger was like a big part of the New Left, and he was like a unionist. He supported trade unions, and he was blacklisted for being like an alleged communist or a communist sympathizer. And like, kudos to him for that. But he really became sucked up. And I think this happens with a lot of musicians. It happened with a lot of musicians in the the mid 20th century, and it still happens now. It's like a lot of these artists and musicians get sucked up into this like Malthusian left that supposedly is socialist and woke and progressive. Fuck all those hippies. Yeah, I know, seriously. I'm being too nice, right? I'm being way too charitable. But I think these guys, they mean well, you know, to channel my inner Jose. I think these guys mean well, but they get caught up in like the worst shit. And like Pete Seeger is a literal Malthusian. If we Google Pete Seeger and overpopulation, it comes up, you know, quite clearly. Like he wrote a song, "We'll All Be a Dublin." He literally had a song about it that was to warn against overpopulation. I think he's listed on, yeah, he's quoted on this Population Matters, which is it's like a leading NGO when it comes to population control, overpopulation. Yeah, so he's listed. He is an outspoken Malthusian, and all of his work for the last few decades of his life.
So, I'm not opposed to the idea of the concern of population growth. I think that it's usually misplaced. I think it's usually the solution to population growth is not. It's not fascism. It's not the overwhelming authority over people, you know, force people into family planning, force people to have, you know, fewer children, or force households into smaller spaces, which are all things that seem to be happening in America. But, you know, giving people the choice of what to pursue generally leads to better outcomes. So it's not by force that we can solve, you know, by reduce the overall population of the world. It's by choice. It's by providing for material needs that generally Western families choose to be smaller. And that's because of comfortable lifestyle, not having to have more children to care for you in your old age. It's a natural consequence of advanced society that you have smaller families. So what that means is that we help people in the developing world grow into an energy wealthy society, and there's no population bomb. And that's simply the reality of it. It's almost miraculous. What has happened in America is, after the baby boom, we didn't have an echo. We didn't have, you know, hundreds of gigawatts of energy demand appear overnight on the West Coast. We just didn't. And that caused a lot of people like Pete Seeger to scratch their heads like, oh, wait, we were predicting something to be super horrible and super scary, but it never manifested itself. And this is not a question of ideology. It's simply getting the facts wrong. Population could be a problem. And if it was a problem, then we should be looking for a solution. But it's not. It's not really that big of a problem. It is the solution to population is energy wealth.
Go hand in hand with that. He was all about renewable energy. He wanted to replace everything with renewable energy. So here he is in this magazine for renewables. Like this was like a big magazine for renewable energy. So what's funny is when Pete Seeger talks about his electric pickup truck and the solar electric system in his home, he starts out by saying everything I know about electricity can be written on my thumbnail, which is so funny. This guy doesn't know shit. He's admitting he doesn't know shit about electricity, which is not good. It's not good, folks. And I think he's like Steve Fox. He's saying out loud what we all kind of already knew, right? Is that these people who advocate for renewable energy don't know anything about electricity and how it works. Because if they did, they would know that it's bullshit, that wind and solar are bullshit, that they're not reliable. They need gas, coal, or nuclear to back them. They need like a hard fuel source of energy to back them up, because you can't control the wind and the sun. You are dependent on when God decides to blow the wind and when the sun shines. So they're totally unreliable. They destroy the stability of our electricity grids. And that's why the Malthusians love renewables, because they literally undermine. They create rolling blackouts. They undermine the stability of the grid. They're nonsense. They're garbage. They're horrible. But yeah, I mean, Pete Seeger, sadly, devoted the end of his life to shutting down Indian Point Nuclear, which was the nuclear plant just north of New York City, which provided like a quarter of their energy and clean energy. Here's Annie DeFranco. I can't stand these people, these annoying hippie musicians. But if they really did care about emissions, which I don't give a shit about that stuff, but they seem to actually care about that stuff, they are actually shooting themselves in the foot because...
Hold up. Why don't you care about emissions? I mean, there's science out there that says our global emissions need to come down. Is it a plot? Is it a ploy by like the great agenda, whatever, blah blah blah? I mean, I want to believe that the Pat Socks are on the left, but it's hard to tell. Like, you can't tell the difference between the rhetoric of the patriotic socialists and the actual fascists. If that happens, something's going on, and you're not getting that many people. Like, you watch Haas go out and you watch him do his street speech with Republicans, and they're not buying it. So who are you fooling with your patriotic socialism? I don't know, but it isn't the patriotic crowd.
Indian Point nuclear energy doesn't create any emissions. It's zero. It's emissionless energy. It's 100% clean. Clean burning. So it makes literally no sense that these guys are opposed to nuclear energy. So here's Mark Ruffalo, another Hitlerite, absolutely terrible.
Soy Hitlerite. Soy
has the worst. If you want to see the worst opinions on everything, just look at his Twitter. But yeah, he thanks the late great Pete Seeger because he was a huge part. Pete Seeger created his own NGO to help shut down the nuclear plant. So and the nuclear plant. The reason why my electricity bills and the rest of the people in Hudson Valley's electricity bills have now gone up, literally according to the actual power company. I'll pull this up for you guys too. Right, so here it is.
I'm looking for the source.
They literally state what are the factors driving increased supply prices. Several international, national, and regional factors contributing to market volatility. Locally, the closure of Indian Point last year increased the region's reliance on natural gas for power generation. According to NISO, the organization responsible for managing the state's electricity grid, retiring Indian Point raised the use of fossil fuels for generation in downstate New York from 77% to 89%, increased average electricity prices by 85% between 2020 and 2021. So, these people, someone said, like, why take shots at Pete Seeger? Well, the guy literally made my electricity bills go up.
Oh, they did.
I mean,
they worked to shut down Indian Point.
Fucking asshole. It's sad. He didn't write the song "What Side Are You On," but he popularized it, and that's like one of the leftist anthems. They love that.
This is the group that helped shut down Indian Point. Hudson Reverse Loop.
He's terrible. His advocacy is terrible. Who knows? Maybe if we had intervened with Pete Seeger, maybe he would have. And like this, really, that's the axiom. That's the axiom of this thinking, right? Is this idea that there's too many people, the world is overpopulated, and we're killing the planet. That's what cascades down and creates the justification for all these opinions, and that's why the left is Malthusian. They don't understand that as the main point of the main ideology of the ruling class, the oligarchs and the imperialists, is that they believe that there's too many people. That's it. We should be pushing for a publicly owned nuclear energy Apollo program. Yeah, that'd be pretty based. Okay. We are hardcore nuclear enthusiasts on this channel. We are very
I saw Alex's comment. We need 1 trillion
people.
people.
I feel sad because I didn't know
if that's
how
correct.
great nuclear energy was until
I don't know that it's wrong.
Indian Point was about to close. I wish I'd known earlier. Although it's not like I single-handedly could have stopped the closure. This was like decades in the making. But so another little Easter egg in this article I want to show you guys is I mentioned how Peter Buffett. So if you guys are familiar with me in this channel, you know that Peter Buffett. He is headquartered here in my town of Kingston, New York, and it's a fucking like leftist paradise here, and I mean that in like the worst way possible. It fucking sucks, and I hate it. But he has been sort of using this town as like a way. It's technically a city, but it's a very small city. We only have 20,000 people, but he's been using our city as a sort of a petri dish for his degrowth ideas and how he wants to like run the world as this like neo-feudal, anarcho-primitive world where everyone just gives each other massages and gardens potatoes for subsistence farming for 20 hours a day. That's like his utopia that he wants to build. But so I have done lots of research. I know this guy, Donald Parkinson, he likes to think that he's really doing the deep research and getting into the LaRouche organization and what they're all about. But he doesn't know why he does what he does. He doesn't know what he's trying to get at. I do that kind of research too. My research on Peter Buffett and what's happening literally in my own backyard has brought me to understanding what Malthusianism is all about, because Peter Buffett is a hardcore Malthusian who is all about the degrowth movement. So here's the Post-Growth Institute, is a very prominent degrowth think tank, right? Think tank organization. And they wrote in their blog that they were thrilled to be awarded a game-changing grant from an anonymous funder, sorry. What's more, we received a multi-year grant of $150,000 from the Novo Foundation. The Novo Foundation. So Novo Foundation is all about degrowth. They talk about post-growth living. They talk about post-growth entrepreneurship. Do they say the D word in here? Yeah, here we go. Degrowth. That's what they're all about. Degrowth. This guy, Tim Parikh, his shit blew up.
But what is it? What is degrowth? The Post-Growth Institute. Okay.
Institute is a very prominent degrowth think tank, right? Think tank organization. And they wrote in their blog that they were thrilled to be awarded a game-changing grant from an anonymous funder, sorry. What's more, we received a multi-year grant of $150,000 from the Novo Foundation. The Novo Foundation. So Novo Foundation is all about degrowth. They talk about post-growth living. They talk about
Novo Foundation, one of the largest private foundations in the world, is working to end violence against women and girls. Okay.
Post-growth entrepreneurship. Do they say the D word in here? Yeah, here we go. Degrowth. That's what they're all about. Degrowth. This guy.
Novo Foundation supports initiatives that promote a holistic, interconnected, and healing vision for humanity. Okay, well, that sounds fine. And if the mission of the Novo Foundation is related to the Post-Growth Institute, what is that? What is that about? Is that about degrowth, or is that preparing for the end of growth? It's just not clear yet.
Guy Tim Parikh.
How is it going? Right. And so degrowth has been explained to you as ending the constant drive towards growth and expansion and changing to a model that looks to achieve sustenance, effectively looking to stagnate resource usage and move towards a model where we seek equilibrium. Great. Okay. Immediately do that in the West. Do it when it's time in the global South, right? Because otherwise we're talking about ending people's access to growing markets that help them survive. It means doing something wrong in terms of ending global poverty. Now, there are people, and let me derail because I got a bite. Thanks for stopping by and commenting. If we look at Jason Hickel and his writings on global poverty, he will here we go. People who measure progress against global poverty by using the $1.90 per day should keep in mind that it is lower than the consumption level of enslaved people in the United States in the 19th century. Okay, great. The problem is that we need to eliminate global poverty. And yes, maybe even though they were toiling in pre-abolition America, it was better than global poverty. So what's the solution? I think that he's later said, or earlier he said this. It doesn't mean anything. So what's the answer? What's the solution? Yes, we do need to eliminate poverty. And I'm glad that you agree. But the question is that we don't see proposals that lead to a solution from degrowth authors. Right. And so you're talking about resource extraction from these communities and encirclement and so on and so forth. So the question is what China is doing to develop markets abroad, is that a solution to global poverty? Is what American corporations do is they work to extract the labor from people in developing nations, and those people use labor in order to produce goods in a sweatshop, or they sort through garbage. I mean, these are the sort of the questions is, what's the next step? What's the solution? My proposal, of course, is energy wealth everywhere, just as much energy as possible, so that it becomes much more attractive to employ labor in service of optimizing systems, in terms of guiding robots that'll do these things. It's basically a labor multiplier. And as well, it would very rapidly move people from a subsistence way of life to a skilled trade way of life to a knowledge worker way of life. And so, yes, I want energy wealth in the developing world, because it means that we would seek immediate justice in terms of how our global economy works. And I don't really see that as a solution from degrowthers. The degrowther solution is, oh, well, they're actually fine. These people are living the correct lifestyle, and all of you Westerners should be living this 300 watt lifestyle instead of your 2 kilowatt lifestyle. And that doesn't sound like a solution to me. Like, the solution from people like Jason Hickel is, oh, you need to move into a suburban home with 20 of your friends and grow crops in your 1/4 acre backyard. But you won't be able to feed, 2, nevertheless 8, 6, or 10 people from your suburbanoid home garden. Right. No, we're on the same side. I mean, it is providing equitable access to these resources. That's what it is. Let me make sure that I'm not showing the wrong thing on screen. Yeah, here we go. If you want to try out this calling software, go ahead and check out ping.gg, call your environment Seattle. I haven't bothered them to change the slug name on my channel, but don't really need it. So
he's gotten big lately, but he used to argue with me all the time on Twitter. He's a real cunt. Look him up. He is like such a little bitch. I hate that guy. He's a bitch. Am I allowed to say the C word? I'm gonna get
we'll find out.
On my channel. So that's what the Novo Foundation is funding, and then we have.
But see, Fox didn't even tell us what the Novo Foundation is. It is a organization that works to end violence against women. Or that's part of it. Let's look a little closer. Initiatives that promote a holistic, interconnected, and healing vision for humanity. Humanity is at a crossroads, and our current culture is deeply out of balance. Okay, this is a little woo-woo, isn't it? Okay, so I am a little sussy about Novo Foundation now. Not sure that I know what their prescription is anymore.
Bard College. So Russia bans Bard College. Was it because of George Soros or geopolitical tension? Spoiler alert.
All right. How's it going, Ancom?
Oh, hello.
Camera's optional,
Okay.
of course.
Can you hear me?
Yes. In fact, I believe that the stream... Yep, I'm double checking that the stream can hear you as well.
Let me just unmute.
Yep, they can.
Yep, okay, cool. So yeah, I'm looking into the Nova Foundation now as well. I've never heard of them before.
Yeah, some interesting ideas, huh?
I mean, I haven't been watching for very long, so I haven't seen much yet.
So of all the Pat Socks, I think that I can stomach Fox Green the easiest, but I am unfortunately not universally impressed even by his regular content. I think that it's great to support nuclear energy, but I'm really sussed out about the Ukraine stuff and and other items.
Yeah, I tend to be pretty sus of Pat Socks in general for various reasons.
Right. Yeah, case by case basis is where I'm headed. But yeah, how's your day going?
So far, so good. It's been rather longer than usual because work kept getting in the way of, life.
Yeah.
But,
it's cool that you were able to
overall,
connect
not
as your Discord user name.
Yeah, when you gave me the link, it gave me a number of options to authenticate, and I used the Discord authentication.
Nice.
Yeah, so if I'm, and it's entirely plausible I'm not reading this right, but in their FAQ, the first question that they have posted that seems to have anything to do with like what they actually do is, how does Novo decide what to fund? So it almost seems like they're just a pass-through charity, right? People, you give to them, they give to other stuff. Right. So like I hate charities like this because their literally only purpose is to be a middleman.
Yeah. And let me give you an idea of how that works is because I'm recently coming into the understanding of how foundations like this work, is that there's a public service organization or like a public benefit nonprofit, and that option is really great for people who receive donations from the public or from existing organizations that are already established. And so you're required to so in a public service or a public benefit nonprofit, you're supposed to basically get public support directly, and I forget what the term is, 501c3, and there's like something A or B, and one of those is you get donations from the public and you're allowed to get investment income from it, versus pure service, which you can get paid by foundations like this or municipalities or etc., but you can't get investment income. So you have to choose. You either take donations from the public, and that's the 1/3 plus of your income, or you get less than 1/3 from investments, and that's the other kind. And if you if you do that, then foundations are allowed to give you money.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'll see like, special donation day or special matching donation day, where if every dollar you donate today, your donation will be matched. And that's like a 350 or something who is allowed to stockpile their money into investments, and they literally can only take a certain fraction of funding from foundations, because based on how many members of the public or how much members of the public donate. So it's all a thing. So don't be mad about just this kind of nonprofit. There's a lot of nonprofits that are bad in multiple ways. But yeah. So this is a pass through. Peter and Jennifer Buffett.
I have a curiosity on just kind of scrolling down their list of questions here, and this one that says, "Does Novo support defund the police?" caught my eye, and their ultimately their answer is, "We support the process of communities examining and debating all ideas in good faith, however challenging they may appear to be," which is just a fucking non-answer, an absolute goddamn non-answer.
Well, it's not a no, but it's not a yes.
I mean, yeah, like, I'm kind of the opinion that if it's not an outright no or an outright yes, it's basically a no. Like, they just, they're not gonna come right out and support it. Then that
Novo does not accept unsolicited proposals for funding. Interesting. Oh, this is a really good one. Grant seeker info. So there could be like a special influence situation going on here.
Yeah.
I mean, very much shades of Clinton Foundation, spooky foundation, but still, I mean, this is the way that all of them operate, and there's big money in it, and there's a lot of academic energy in managing foundations.
Yeah, the thing about these sorts of foundations, to me, especially, when they have the backing of these ultra wealthy, or they're founded by these ultra wealthy individuals, is they're just tax havens. Like, they're not doing anything of any real impact, or at least not in any way that would serve to challenge the status quo in any meaningful way. So, it's all of this kind of stuff is just utterly a waste of time, and like it's literally just wealthy people pulling the wool over our eyes, making it seem like they actually care. And it's like, no, the only thing you care about is keeping more of your money, because that's what charities help you do.
Right. But they'll save us. They'll save us, just like Patagonia. They'll save us.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, Patagonia is totally going to save us. It's not like there was anything suspicious or fishy about that whole thing. Watches Adam Conover's entire 30-minute video on the subject.
I'll look that one up.
Oh yeah, it was the first of one of these long explainer videos, but it very much had the feel of Adam Ruins Everything, Patagonia, only more intense, I guess.
Oh, good, nice. Yeah. There it is. Yeah. Found it for chat.
Yeah. Definitely worth a watch.
All right. So in
2000,
I clicked on the wrong thing, and I have a sad cat downstairs.
Not a sad cat.
A sad cat. There's Fox's video back. Anyways, ready for anything now. Yeah. It's interesting to think about. Is what's the right solution? It's it's the concentration of power that, you know, as anarchists, we're both very focused on. And so, like, trying to unseat those concentrations of power in the most effective way, you know, that's my jam as well. So,
yeah,
Novo Foundation, not super excited about what they're doing. But maybe they could do some good stuff. I don't know.
I mean, the potential for doing good is certainly always there, but I think that, you know, history has shown us that the potential is very seldom realized.
Right. And I guess so that's my difference between, like, the specific Bill Gates campaigns that I can get behind, like TerraPower, because I know what product they're making, and I know there's going to be, like, a lot of labor involved, and a lot of trust and societal good involved in making clean energy. If it was like some magical boxed up, not involving labor, not involving any kind of valuable output, I would be maybe a little more sussy about it.
Yeah, I mean, anything to do with Bill Gates is automatically sus to me. So
sure,
it's one of those things where, you know, there's nothing I can do about it. So all I can really do is kind of see what ends up coming of it to determine whether or not it's going to be worth, you know, having any form of support for it.
Right.
But just kind of, I'm going to sit at, if it's a Bill Gates funded venture, then by default, I'm going to be like, no.
But so, what if it's a Mark Ruffalo funded venture? Is that better? Or a Leonardo DiCaprio?
No, it's really not.
Leonardo DiCaprio venture. I mean, that's good. It's not for, like, you know, trafficking women. It's totally not kidding. He doesn't need to traffic women. He just goes to Malibu and picks them up.
It's true.
But yeah, so this is, you know, the question is not who is behind the organization. It's what's the structure, what's the hierarchy, what's the potential for corruption.
Yeah, and generally speaking, the potential for corruption and, you know, untoward motives that I would find objectionable is, you know, statistically pretty damn high.
So
there are very few large foundations that I put any real trust in.
So the Post-Growth Fellowship, that's next on my. This sounds less worrying than Novo Foundation.
Let's see here.
I'm not sure that they have an answer for my questions. Like, and the question is, well, how do you achieve post-growth? Because the details, you know, the devil is in the details. So maybe I've just got a lot of reading ahead of me, but I haven't run into many formulas for what a good, you know, a good differentiator, you know, and that's what I'm looking for is, you know, listening to people like Zatchap trash talk eco-modernism is like, well, it's all branding, and there's really the answer is you just do the next right thing, and if it's stuff like this, if it's, you know, post-growth society and we say it's good to be energy efficient and it's good to have more local economies and more local food development, I'm for it. And it's indifferentiable from eco-modernism in that way. It's only when you say, well, we should be revitalizing all of the soil with these terracotta unglazed pots and growing our own food and definitely not, using vertical farming, because that's technological and cringe. And that's sort of like where it breaks down for me, that I don't see a productive conversation there, because it's just attacking technology. It's saying nature good, tech is bad.
Okay. So looking at the Post-Growth Institute's charter and the principles they cite, it seems like overall, I think, like, generally I agree with what's written here. But I'm just trying to... Yeah, I'm having trouble finding anything that resembles, like, how they propose to move forward. So, like, the principles I agree with, but then it's, gets to a question of, okay, how do we get to a place where these principles are being lived? Okay, they do have they do have some very interesting kind of how-to, like how to start a housing co-op. But then they also have this how to share a house. So it's kind of like,
It's not loading. Oh, come on. Is that under living post-growth?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's strange. It's
yeah,
not loading.
there's a crap ton of how-to articles on here.
Does it just hate my browser? Are you using Firefox?
I'm using an offshoot of Chrome called Brave.
Okay. Well, that was really strange. Anyways, I used Chrome and Edge and it didn't come up. But yeah, I can see, and it's really disappointing when the solution...
Oh, okay. So I realized all of this content on this page, it looks like it's like an iframe from Shareable.
Oh.
So, yeah,
Okay.
it's our friends at Shareable have created these fantastic posts to help you save money, reduce waste, build community, yada yada yada. So it's just a bunch of links to Shareable posts.
All right. Okay. Yeah, but as I was saying, the solution, the solution to climate and overuse of resources, it has to be better than just move. It has to be more. It has to be more systemic. It has to be more than these individual responsibility things, because that's sort of a cop out. It's basically liberalism. It's that, okay, pat on the head, Carl, you're great for riding your electric bike. Now make sure all of your friends also ride electric bikes, because that's the only way we're gonna solve this climate thing. Not, make it more difficult to drive cars for the majority of people. Make it easier for the majority of people to use mass transit. Make it more attractive to, develop a business or a co-op situation where you don't need to have a car. So this is the difference between individual actions and systemic actions that has been bothering me for a while. Yeah. Are you streaming tonight?
I will not be now.
Oh, okay. There's some stuff going on Twitch today. Debates, of course.
Yep.
good to see people branch out. I've been detached from the debate scene for a while, but it is good to see people interact on that level, I suppose. Even though the conversations always seem to be the same. Anything else on your mind today?
Not in particular. It was. I'm mostly just going through this post growth website has links to a lot of other websites that seem to be their own like foundations. So it's very confusing. It doesn't seem. It's another one of these. Doesn't seem to do anything itself. Just points to a lot of other people. So.
What original research? No, we'll just write a bunch of papers referencing one another and.
We'll just make a bunch of websites that point to one another, and like
lots of pros, few solutions.
Exactly. Yeah, they have something called the Not-for-Profit Way, an intensive 3-day training program for social entrepreneurs and community organizers seeking the skills to start, scale, and sustain purpose-driven projects and create the change they wish to see in the world. Which to me is just a bunch of like feel-good marketing mumbo jumbo nonsense. Like.
Wow.
Adding original content would be more growth. I mean, I suppose that's fair.
Post-growth alliance. Don't you want to get in on this? Average post reaching more than 20,000 people. Ooh boy.
Woohoo.
I hope it's not a no nonsense. Adding original content would be growth. So you need to be you actually need to be a pyramid scheme if you want to truly be post growth.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Oof.
Just, funnel all that money to the top. No growth, just funnel.
Yep. No growth. Post-growth Bitcoin. Oh, that reminds me. I wonder how Ethereum launch is doing.
Ethereum launch? What do you mean? They've been around for a while.
Ethereum 2.0 launch. We have had the merge. And so now Ethereum 2.0.
Oh, it's the shift from proof of work to proof of stake.
Yes, very exciting. Proof of stake is interesting.
Indeed. When I first saw it proposed, I looked a little bit into it, and I definitely see how it solves the environmental issue with the environmental issue with cryptocurrency, but it also feels like it's just a way of letting the people with the most stake have an excessive say in how the currency works, and it feels like I get what they were going for in terms of changing or moving away from the proof of work model, but I feel like this has its own problems in proposing to be a decentralized currency, because essentially now you are relying on the people with the most of the current, with the most share of the currency to validate the transactions within that currency. And it just, something about that just feels wrong. As much as they say, well, it would be impractical for anyone to do like a 51% attack. I'm like, sure, any one person, but you get a consortium of maybe 20 ultra wealthy people together, and I'm sure they could probably make that work somehow. So it's not out of the question, and yeah, I wish there was a way to keep it more decentralized without the ridiculous computing requirements.
Right. But hopefully this is progress. Hopefully it will mean better cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, in order for this really to have an effect, it would need to, either supplant or influence how Bitcoin does their blockchain verification, because ultimately, Bitcoin is still the biggest beast on the playground.
Right. And Bitcoin is what holds more, I think it's what holds more long-term wealth. And so the question is it helping in terms of having a more liquid marketplace and keeping the liquid marketplace lower in terms of lower cost, lower energy consumption? And it feels not super bad if it is doing at least that part. It's making some part of the established and trusted crypto system, the cryptocurrency system, better, even if it doesn't solve everything. It makes a place for you to put your money in and put your market share and your, if you were like making a marketplace in cryptocurrency, you would feel less bad about using Ethereum 2 instead of Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's fair. I tried playing the Star Trek. I forgot the name of this game. I tried playing it for a little while on my phone, but it felt like one of those things that you just had to grind forever to get anywhere.
Oh yeah. Fleet Command is definitely a grindy game. It's
yeah.
I don't necessarily recommend it. It is, but it's all right. I mean, it's. I dislike what's the Hero whatever or AFK Arena or any of those are. They're all pretty much the same, and this one is. It's not worse. I can't say how much better it is, but it's not worse.
It's not worse, which, I suppose is a compliment in its own right.
Yeah, so here's Ethereum 2.0, and it did launch.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. So we can check out the. Oh, pardon. Not on that website. I thought this Launchpad site had really detailed information, but it's not. It's not giving me the stats that I'm looking for now.
Mm.
So here's the history of Ethereum, and September 15th, just last month, was the merge.
Yeah.
And before that, we got to go all the way back to Ethereum and Frontier and Homestead and the DAO fork. Oh boy. The DAO fork. This was like before the DAO fork, there was sort of this innocent idea. Oh, we will all get along. Code is law. Nothing bad will happen. And then they wrote a faulty contract for a multi-million-dollar investment scheme. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem with relying on code. It's usually buggy.
Or it can be.
Yeah.
So they forked, and that's the difference between Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. And they forked again because of a denial of service. And forked again to avoid a denial of service. But unlike the DAO fork, everyone followed these forks. So it wasn't a hard fork. It was just a revision in the protocol.
Interesting that the Byzantium fork reduced mining rewards. Usually, at least in most cryptocurrencies I've seen, such a reduction in reward kind of happens automatically over time. So weird they had to implement a fork to make that change.
Yeah.
Oh, delayed the difficulty bomb by a year. That's why they did it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is a planned exponential increase in proof of work so that the reward would basically, but GPUs kept getting faster. So.
Yep. So, well, at least now they've, now they've gone to a proof of stake model. So hopefully that will be less of an issue for them.
And the rest of these seem to be just genuine improvements. Oh, here's another delay to the difficulty bomb in 2020. And then here it is. October 2020 was when staking was initially deployed. And the price, the ETH price is, and the crypto price has tracked, like the Bitcoin price has tracked pretty stable compared to Ethereum for the last few years. So all of these are very, pretty straightforward. Oh, here, Berlin. This was when we had massive inflation in the value of cryptocurrency during 2021. And then London, it's even higher.
Yeah, right now it's somewhere in the realm of like 1600, I think.
Yep. So they kept putting in these delays to the difficulty bomb that was part of the core protocol. Just like, oh, we promise staking is coming any day now. And then crypto tanked.
Ooh, that was
in 2022.
Yeah, that's a hell of a crash.
Yeah.
It went from 4111 to 1069.
Yeah. Yo.
And that was between December and June 3rd. Okay, so within about 6 months, it dropped quite heavily.
And then it recovered by a third. And then we're into the merge. And so here we are. Proof of work blockchain passing a terminal total difficulty. And it triggered, so basically there's maybe that's the difficulty bomb. Terminal total difficulty.
Oh, okay. They basically made it automated so that once the difficulty of validating a block came to a certain value, it would just auto merge the Paris fork or Paris upgrade, so that all future blocks were then staked rather than done via proof of work.
Oh, and now it's the brave new world of Ethereum 2.0.
Yep. Although this is one of the reasons why it makes me feel kind of sus about proof of stake, is that in order to become a validator, you have to put up 32 Ethereum. That's just kind of, in limbo for you, right? It's like a deposit, which at the current price of Ethereum is about $50,000. So you've got to have a significant chunk of change in order to be able to do that. But because you earn Ethereum on every transaction or every block that you are selected as the validator, there's a kind of a return on investment that they're averaging to about between 4 to 7%, which is really good. That's assuming that the Ethereum price stays relatively stable from this point, which cryptocurrencies are just so well known for their stability.
That 75% crash in 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is I feel the same way about real estate, honestly.
True.
It feels like it's right around the corner.
Oh, yeah, no, I absolutely expect like a major real estate crash within the next year, probably fairly soon, like the next quarter or two. But that's going to make a lot of people very unhappy, and a few people hopefully will be able to get, their first home dirt cheap.
For me, it'll be my second home, my first one in the city where I want to be. Oh.
Yeah, like if people who currently own their houses are looking to move, I would say sell your house now, find a place to rent, and then wait it out until the market crashes, then buy your new home. And, effectively you would be sort of shorting the market.
Right. It is something to consider, opening a home refi, getting a home refi loan or a home renovation loan, and just sitting on a large chunk of the cash under the presumption that, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to spend it someday. I promise I'm going to spend it someday. But then that would make me upside down in my loan. Yeah, I probably shouldn't do that. I probably shouldn't go upside down in my loan.
No, going upside down on your loan would likely be a very bad idea.
Yeah. So I guess selling is the only way out.
Yeah, it really is, because like keeping the home, you're probably gonna end up upside down regardless if you keep the home, because like if the housing market is going to crash, it's going to take everyone down with it.
Right. I mean, it would have. Okay. We are past 15 years in our initial loan. It would have to crash by 80% for us to be upside down again.
Okay. Well, then, yeah, you're probably okay being Hopefully. That far in. Anyone who's still within like the first 10 on a 30-year might be a little more in trouble.
Yeah. And especially the first 5, and you're paying mostly interest in the first 5. So you're in big trouble if the market implodes and you just bought a home. And so I'm definitely not going to buy a home in the next few years.
Yeah, no.
Well. Yep. What's next? Oh man. Oh, I should definitely look at home prices.
I'm guessing home prices in the Seattle region are about the same as they are in the Boston area, which is to say that, like, you know, a 3-bed, you're gonna have trouble finding a decent 3-bed for under $500,000.
So,
and, like, so many of the homes around here are easily $1 million plus.
Boston, I have heard, is better than Seattle by a bit. So let's go for sale. 3. Here's our missing middle. 3+ bedroom. The cheapest here is $850,000, and this is a extremely high crime area. And let me show you why in just a minute.
And it's also just kind of ugly.
Oh yeah, it's definitely ugly.
And it's part of a duplex, so that's always fun.
Right. Well,
you don't technically own the whole building. You own a section of it, which means you lose out on at least a few of the advantages of being a homeowner.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm not going to complain. I would live in a duplex. So yeah, here is this neighborhood on Google Earth. This wonderful place is called the Columnade, and it is, of course, it is a place with a lot of transient camping. And
I can imagine why. Yeah. Right next to the highway overpass is not always the nicest place to live.
Yeah. No. I mean that's the camping is under the freeway. Is basically that's where the camping is. And so even if Seattle Police Department is super aggressive about preventing camping, and if you go on this the east side of the Columnade, you will see like all the absolutely no camping signs. But I always stumble across someone who is seeking shelter there because we have a deficit. We have a deficit of like 60,000 homes, meaning we have 60,000 jobs that we've gained in the last decade, more than we have gained homes. So,
yikes!
That's Seattle. That's the wonderful place where I live, which is 80% of the buildings in Seattle. Let's get the boundaries. 80% of that. It's not showing the boundaries. I'll do it on Zillow. 80% of these are single-family dwellings.
Oof.
This is supposed to be a city. This is a city with a mass transit system.
Yeah. That is a city that kind of grew up really fast and did not account for the population growth that comes with that.
So yeah, and this down here around MLK, you can tell still getting gentrified. So yeah, I don't have, even if I have millions of dollars in the bank, I would not buy.
No, I would never want to live in a city like Seattle. I would, I'd live somewhere outside of it where hopefully it would be a little cheaper, but
I would live in a city if it wasn't $2 million to live where I would like to live.
yeah, that's fair.
I would love to live in this city. I would love to have a $500,000 3 to 4 bedroom. I couldn't.
You got a 575 there.
Well, it depends where it is.
Oh yeah. Well, I couldn't tell where it was. There's some lag on the screen share, so
yeah. Oh yeah, because you're what? Sorry, I could be sharing in here, but that would take up more. But here is $16 million right next to the.
Oh, well, that's a fucking mansion.
Yeah, it is. It is. It literally is. It's called Millionaires Row.
What's the big building in the background of that picture?
That's the Catholic Church. St. Mark's.
Gotcha.
Yeah. What is
yeah,
this
that's where the fucking bougie ass CEO lives.
Yeah. This neighborhood, and this is my neighborhood. This is Millionaires Row, part of my neighborhood.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah. Well, Volunteer Park, Prospect.
Oh, well, it just said Capitol Hill, so I'm guessing that's where, like, wait, no, your state capital isn't in Seattle. What am I thinking? Okay, so I have no idea why Capitol Hill is called that, although I did just now realize that's the Capitol Hill that was Capitol Hill organized protest.
Yep. Yeah, and the question is, why is it called Capitol Hill? Because someone was trying to get the state capital to be here. I'm pretty
of course
sure
they were.
Yeah. Okay, here it is. In the 1900s, Capitol Hill was known as Broadway Hill. The origin of its current name is disputed. James A. Moore, real estate developer who platted much of the area, reported gave it the name in the hope that the Washington state capital would move to Seattle from Olympia. Yep, I was right. I remembered that correctly. Another story claims that Moore named it after the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Denver, Colorado, his wife's hometown. Both may be likely true. Interesting.
Mm.
But yeah, and that's... It's funny the way real estate developers be tripping on their own supply very often. But yeah, these are the prices of last sale. So
yeah,
most of these I think are double or triple the prices we see on screen.
Just the fact that so many people are able to afford that is shocking to me.
Amazon. Speaking
oh, that's right. I've got Amazon's... Well, yeah, Amazon and Microsoft headquarters.
Yeah.
Both right near there, so...
Speaking of which, I think this is it. Is that it? There's Medina.
$20 million on that little... Jesus.
I think one of these is the Gates estate. One of these in Medina. So yeah, of course, these prices should be much higher.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, the current Zillow estimate on that is 13.8 million. So that's fun.
Yeah. But yeah.
Although honestly, like I expected like the Gates estate to be much larger in terms of just the overall amount of land.
It might be
so.
No, that's an actual marina. That's an actual park. it's one of these. I'm not gonna, really, but is purportedly on this side of the water, overlooking Lake Washington. There's a $26 million 6-bedroom mansion. And I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait until it crashes.
Yep.
Back to the digital bits where I feel slightly less bad. The digital spaceships that I feel slightly less bad about. Yeah, hopefully after the crash happens, I can still make enough on whatever I feel like doing to support it. But my current plan is to keep doing production. Hopefully I'll be able to take this... I should show this on stream. Hopefully I can show this device off to a few venues. And
Ooh, what is that?
It
That's
is
pretty.
a 4 output, 8 input professional video switcher. Actually, I guess it's enthusiast grade video switcher. And I got some dust on it because my last stream, my woodworking stream, was me making a retaining clamp for this so that it wouldn't get dropped in the middle of my rack. Because it's not exactly rack mount, but I do want it to be on a rack.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm still in the middle of my transitional phase. I'm gonna be buckling down and focusing on the election for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll see where we're going.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yep. Hopefully I can recapture the joy of programming before I have to go look for a job.
Yeah, I am tangentially connected to the world of programming. I currently work in DevOps, so it's one of those where I can definitely see why people get sick of that real fast.
Soon we will all be DevOps.
It's true. Which means I'm in a good position.
There you are. You're a plumber of the internet.
Exactly. I picked a profession that, while it's one that I generally do well in and generally enjoy, also has the benefit of being the profession that is likely to be replaced last by the machines, because I'm the guy who fixes the machines.
That's right. Yep. That's why I'm really focused on product. And if I can stay on top of creative stuff and product technology, like the software you're using right now is a friend's startup, and I'm advising them.
Oh.
And hopefully we'll get some good participation in their project.
Indeed.
Yeah. I can even turn my camera on this and be on stream, but that's because I'm cheating. I'm window capturing NVIDIA broadcast.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say, in OBS you can, with version 28, they actually gave you the ability to make the virtual webcam that OBS has built in. You can now point that at a particular scene rather than what is being broadcast live. So that means I found a way to be able to, do my stream and then set my set the OBS virtual camera to a different scene that just has my webcam in it, and so I can still use my webcam while I'm streaming. So
nice, yeah,
which is a very nice little addition, because there was a plugin for that, but it was quite buggy. So now that they've put that functionality directly in the application, it's much more stable and works quite well, actually.
Let me try that. I will. There it is. Let's see how this works. Okay. And it's pretty good.
Yeah.
I just upgraded to 28.1, and of course you need, for me, I use BitFocus Companion, and so I need the WebSocket server compatibility module. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm guessing the BitSocket, or I don't remember what you said it was called, Bit something Companion.
Yep, BitFocus.
Oh, BitFocus. Yeah, I'm guessing they haven't updated to the .5 version of the OBS API yet.
There is a plugin for that version, but it's unfortunately not as good. So here's my buttons. Here's my camera selection. Like you can watch me turn on and off my camera.
Gotcha.
I should actually go back to that scene. There we go. Content take. Okay. So now you can see me turn off and on.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I've never heard of BitFocus Companion, but it kind of looks like a Stream Deck alternative sort of thing.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I've been using Touch Portal for that because I have a spare tablet that I was able to use.
And if
that's pretty cool.
Press and hold this, it'll take me to page 28. And on page 28, I can press this button and it shrinks down my camera. That also shrinks it down here. I need to change which camera my virtual cam uses, possibly.
Well, it's just the scene. So when you change the size of a source in one scene, it should not affect how that's transformed in any other scene.
Yeah, except I chose. So you'll see here.
And your virtual cam still. Oh, okay. There. Yeah, I just saw what it did.
So if I'm using camera 2, which is the composited one, then yeah, it is using the crop.
Gotcha.
But if I go back to the raw one, there we go. So I just have to reprogram my shortcuts so that I use the right thing.
Yeah.
Or I'll use anyways. But I think I like using these because I have lower thirds programmed into each of these camera scenes.
Okay.
Anyways,
You've got a much more advanced setup than I do. Mine is quite simplistic, which works well for me because this level of complexity in the customization will just I will either get myself confused or more likely just forget about all the really nice advanced stuff and never use it. So I try to only keep to just a few things that I know I'm going to use, and then I can always set up something on the fly if I need some other layout.
Yeah. Oh, and what's the... There we go. Let's change that back again. Okay. And yeah, I have developed this. I sort of got inspired by some of the work that I saw done by another creator called Josh David Ford, who made a companion interface to the ATEM, which is that giant device that I've got. And I learned from the programming in his button layouts, and I learned a bunch of techniques for doing stuff like that. And then, yeah, I just decided to keep iterating, and I think I found a workflow that I really like. So I can select different camera sources. But what I need to do is I need to finish polishing this. And yes, I can do the Stardust zoom. I thought I can. Oh, I disabled the plugin. The plugin that I use for zoom is not available in 28.1.
Oh.
And the recording isn't available either. But yeah, so I can do all sorts of funny things with this. Yeah, I can do lower thirds, turn it on and off, turn the text on and off.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm avoiding making a third layer of this virtual camera thing, but I want to be able to put lower thirds on my direct camera if I want to. But you see that I'm not doing that now. Anyways, that was the wrong button. I should move that.
You've definitely got quite the studio set up there.
I've got like 3 SKB rolling racks because the first one I bought was too big. The second one I used for quite a while and it was nice, but I wanted the flip top. My camera keeps focusing somewhere weird, and it's disturbing. It's like it's fixed focused, and I need to correct that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
this can be a pain sometimes.
Yeah, this is now what I'm doing for a day job when I get the time to, or when I get the bookings. It is what I do for a day job now. So.
Gotcha.
Need to work on the client base, need to cross my fingers and hope that the people doing this economic activity don't fall on their faces and all that grand and glorious stuff. So
yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm not particularly optimistic.
Yep, me neither.
So all right, man. Well, I think I'm going to go, but it was good talking to you, and hopefully I will catch you around later.
Yep. See you around, Sean.
All right. Bye.
Bye. And that is it. Sean is my one viewer right now, I think. So good catching up with you. And I'm going to end stream. So all y'all have a good time. Oh, you're still here? No nonsense. Oh, well, my count is off. That's why. Jeez. Woof. That was a near miss. I'll stick around for a few more minutes. It's the least I can do. I have to decide where I want to go for dinner. It's a special night. All right. Well, where should I go? Where should I go to dinner? In South Seattle tonight. Could go somewhere in West Seattle. Oh, and the bridge is open now. We can actually go out to West Seattle. Question is, how busy is it? Seems to get busy later at night. And I'm putting together my calendar for the evening. I've got another hour. Well, I think I'm going to end the call-in portion of my stream. And maybe we'll change to a different game. So I'm finishing out my... mining here. I could do one more grinding run. Let's watch videos and grind. Since I've got a lot more time, why not? Checking my calendar. Calendar says I have more time. Modern day debate. And nothing else interesting there. What's new in nuclear YouTube? Tabs for just a second. Okay. Time to update the title. Putin's nuclear threat. Nope. Nope. Oh, this one. I think I'm supposed to react to this one.
Back now with our NBC News investigation into growing concerns about the nation's aging nuclear power plants. Are they prepared for the ravages of climate change and for natural disasters like the recent Hurricane Ian? Cynthia McFadden with an alarming wake-up call.
Tonight, the looming question. What if Hurricane Ian had moved 150 miles east and struck Miami? Might its 50-year-old nuclear power plant, Turkey Point, have ended up endangering the community it serves?
You can't operate a nuclear plant if it's an island in the middle of a storm.
Local.
Have you heard of submarines?
Environmentalist Rachel Silverstein, a marine biologist, fears Turkey Point is not ready and has challenged the plant's license.
We're very concerned that Turkey Point is cutting corners and is not doing all of the assessments that it needs to do to run this plant into the future safely.
But Florida Power and Light says it's more than ready, pointing out the plant withstood Hurricane Andrew, a massive Category 5, 30 years ago. Silverstein says that doesn't mean it could these days.
Thousands forced to flee from the path of a radioactive leak.
She points to a plant in Fukushima, Japan, hit by an earthquake and tsunami that left 120 square miles of land that may well be uninhabitable.
That wasn't
for
a hurricane.
generations. Greg Yatsko, the former chair of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission under President Obama, says Fukushima caused him to have a change of heart about nuclear power.
We have to stop pretending accidents aren't going to happen. We have to be honest and talk about them. Be candid.
You're full of shit, my dude.
Especially as plants age. Most U.S. nuclear plants are already 40 years old, and nowhere in the world has one
He did not change his position at all.
53 years.
It's game over for this region if we get this wrong.
And many are in increasingly vulnerable locations. Since Turkey Point was built in 1967, the sea here has risen 8 inches, and the pace is accelerating. And while its nuclear reactors are elevated about 18 feet above sea level, the massive cooling system, highlighted in green, essential for maintaining the nuclear core, is not. Another concern, there's about 1,500 metric tons of radioactive waste stored right here next to the bay. We asked the Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, about that.
When you look at the satellite images of where those are stored right next to Biscayne Bay, you kind of gulp and say, let's move them.
Gotta move them. Yep.
Gotta move them.
Why would you say that?
The Regulatory Commission, whose chair was appointed by President Biden, has made no such demand. We pressed Secretary Granholm about where the nation's nuclear waste could go.
There are some people who say, listen, you've got to solve the nuclear waste problem.
Totally
it's accumulating. Nobody's been able to do it.
We're going to do it.
You're going to look me in the eye and say,
interview is suspicious.
In the next 3 years,
that's the hope, is that we will have a place identified.
But for 4 decades, the Energy Department has failed to find a place to put radioactive waste, impacting power plants in 33 states. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has secured billions to prop up unprofitable plants nationwide.
do you look at the $6 billion for nuclear plants as a bailout? It's only going to those who aren't making money.
Yeah, it's, I would say it is a form of a bailout, sure. It is a form of, let's keep these going.
What's the plan about rising sea level?
Yeah, I mean, if there is a danger with rising sea level impacting a plant, the plant should be shut down.
But the NRC is not raising the alarm about that either, saying sea level rise happens so slowly, it's not an urgent priority. Nor
Correct.
does the NRC require a test of the aging metal surrounding the nuclear core to
False.
confirm it's safe.
It actually
Turkey
does.
Point hasn't done it for 20 years. The
Wait.
NRC says mathematical models run by the plant are good enough.
Is nuclear power safe?
It is. In fact, our Nuclear Regulatory Commission has the most rigid safety protocols of any.
Because we know that a mistake could be catastrophic.
Of course, and that's why we doubled down in the nuclear space.
But many scientists say with climate change, it is no longer acceptable to rely on good safety records from the past. Turkey Point declined our interview request, but told us it is ready for natural disasters stronger than the region has ever seen and believes it can operate safely until it's 80 years old. As for Secretary Granholm, she says nuclear reactors can operate until they're 90.
Thanks for watching out.
Well, that was a little disappointing, but there it is. That's a very important video there. I would like you to comment on that video. Yeah, that's a load of... That's a load of crap. I'll save that in my other lists. Oh boy, another
The
NBC.
Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant in San Luis Obispo County now has a new lease on life thanks to $1.4 billion in taxpayer finance loans. But critics worry the plant has to play catch up on a backlog of outstanding inspections that were left languishing because PG&E was planning to close the plant. NBC Bay Area investigative reporter Jackson Vanderbecken has the story.
I'm going to listen on my phone.
The Diablo Canyon nuclear plant is the last one still running in the state, generating more than 2,200 megawatts daily. But it's near a major fault line, raising seismic safety concerns since day one. With the state now embracing renewable alternatives and public sentiment turning against nuclear, PG&E was planning to shut down Diablo Canyon by 2025. So the company let some upgrades and inspections go, with regulators agreeing they weren't worth doing given the imminent shutdown. But now, with the backing of the governor, Diablo Canyon has been given a reprieve to operate years longer, posing what a key official overseeing the plant recently called a major challenge.
All of a sudden, there's a lot more inspections that now need to be done to make sure this is managed.
That's the assessment of Richard McWhirter, a 35-year nuclear industry veteran and former regulator. At a recent meeting of a state-appointed panel overseeing the plant, he outlined a long to-do list, like inspecting for corrosion, which is what caused this cooling system leak in 2020. Checking steel reactor vessels to make sure they haven't become brittle from decades of intense radiation, and upgrading the 1968 vintage alarm system. That's so old, it's nearly impossible to find spare parts anymore.
Right now, they're running Diablo Canyon on chewing gum and baling wire.
Loretta Lynch is a former head of the Public Utilities Commission. She's a frequent PG&E critic who's skeptical the company can do all the work needed to get Diablo Canyon's license renewed next year.
Well, it's like turning the Titanic on a dime.
But PG&E Director Tom Jones recently assured the Diablo Oversight Panel his company is up to the challenge.
It's going to be a tremendous lift, but we're not going to fall short due to resources.
None of this addresses the lingering questions of how well Diablo Canyon would survive an earthquake, particularly since several faults have been discovered since it was built. PG&E and regulators insist the plant is still seismically safe.
They have no business taking our money for it.
But David Weissman with the Alliance for Nuclear Responsibility wants to see a new study showing Diablo will not only survive, but keep power flowing after a quake.
And that's something we're going to insist on, because that's the only reason this plant should operate.
Jackson Vanderbecken, NBC, Bay Area News.
If you have a story for...
Oof.
Well, another remarkable achievement by Labour this week in their great green leap forward. It's the Marinus Link, which is all about the benefit of wind power. And who better to announce this amazing project than Energy Minister Chris Bowen?
What this means is that Tasmania will now be able to move to 200% renewables, unlocking and unleashing that investment potential for jobs
200%?
and for renewable
Why not
energy.
400%?
Firstly, in relation to Marinus Link itself, the Commonwealth will be providing $2.5 billion in concessional loans to ensure that this project can be built as cheaply as possible. Marinus needs to be built. The question is how quickly and how cheaply. We'll be building it as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible using the power of the federal government's balance sheet.
The power of the federal government's balance sheet, otherwise known as your taxes. But not everyone's convinced it's a great idea to spend billions for 2 undersea cables between Tasmania and Victoria. As Victoria Energy Policy Centre Director Professor Bruce Mountain said, the cable is extraordinarily expensive, and building wind farms in Tasmania is roughly comparable to building wind farms in Victoria. When you can make the same product for roughly the same cost in 2 places, the enormous charge of shipping it from one place to another tends not to make sense.
But you need worry not, Professor.
What is
because
up with these
when
commentators?
You think of the Albanese government and its energy forecasting, you think of efficiency and financial prudence, don't you?
Every time.
A policy tailored to change the political climate.
Labor's Powering Australia plan is fully costed.
And targeted at the hip pocket, promising to cut electricity bills by $275 a year by 2025 and $378 by 2030.
Energy companies are warning that home power bills are going to jump by another 35%.
Ooh, could that have something to do with abandoning traditional energy sources, perhaps?
Would it?
And does it fill you with confidence that this man will dictate the future of energy supply?
These commentators
in
are
this
goofy.
You can say the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. Well, the rain doesn't always fall either, but we manage to store the water. We can store the renewable energy. If we have the...
Wait. How? You can't put electrons in a bucket, man. Come on.
investment. Clearly our policy of introducing more renewables into the system is going to reduce power prices.
Yes, clearly, as the last year has shown, putting more renewables into the system has resulted in a reduction, massive reduction of power prices.
Yeah, right.
If only Australia had the means to introduce an energy supply that is reliable and constant, unlike renewables, and what's more, it's emission-free.
Nuclear is the most expensive form of energy. We have a cost of living crisis, energy prices going through the roof, and what's their big bright idea? They say, let's have the most expensive form of energy we can possibly think of. Let's come up with the most expensive form of energy and let's put that in the system because that's going to make power prices cheaper. They want that debate? They really want to argue that? Bring it on.
Yes.
It's just a complete joke.
Well, we know what, or rather who is a complete joke. It's the bloke who promised us not even a year ago that our power prices would be dropping. The same bloke who insists that more renewables means cheaper energy, despite all the evidence to the contrary hitting your letterbox every quarter. The same bloke who we pay $370,000 a year to and get this in return.
Are we going to hear less sledging of the opposition?
It won't be the sort of all we do focus as it was under the previous government. It's just 20 years of climate wars we've had, 10 years of delay, dysfunction. After 9 years of delay and denial, you are really leaving it very late. But that's where we are. The ramifications of 10 years of denial and delay, we are now paying the price of that 10 years of delay and denial. We are paying the price of 9 years of policy dysfunction, of delay, denial, stop, start. That's got to end. 10 years of denial and delay and dysfunction. 9 years of denial and delay and policy chaos. 9 years of denial and delay.
9 years, denial, delay, denial. He's sounding like Joe Biden, isn't he?
Is that a three-word slogan?
He's repeating simplistic slogans, and sometimes he can't even get them right. Here's Chris Bowen last Thursday on the ABC's Q&A.
Starting in 2022, because of 9 years of delay and denial.
Goofy.
And yesterday we had a look at what was happening.
Straight up goofy.
Well,
This one, I heard of this one.
Reports say that the levels at Jana Elementary in Hazelwood School District are 20 times higher than normal. Nuclear weapons were produced in the area during World War II. That school now transitioning to virtual learning, back to how they operated during the COVID pandemic. Parents are understandably afraid and frustrated. Erica Hart has 2 children at the school in 2nd and 4th grades. Joining us live now, Erica, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I can't imagine dealing with this news as a parent. What did you think when you heard that the school was being shut down due to radiation?
When I first heard the news, I was extremely sick to my stomach. Just to let you know that we actually found out through various news outlets and also Facebook posts before we were notified by the school that the school was exposed to radiation. So it was extremely difficult to hear that. I immediately left my desk to pick up my kids from school when I heard the news.
I mean, it must have just been a sickening feeling. And we know that your kids have asthma. They suffer from seizures as well. You just saw a doctor on Friday. What are your concerns about their potential exposure to radiation at that school?
Yes, my son, the 4th grader, has chronic asthma. Also, my daughter has focal motor seizures. My biggest concern is that their health issues is now, due to just the radiation exposure. My biggest concern is that at this point, we're not getting any medical advice, from the St. Louis County. I went to our pediatrician on Friday, and I was informed that they're waiting for the direction of St. Louis County to let us know if there's any tests or any screenings or even signs to look for about what's going on with our kids. So at this point, they have no information to provide on a health perspective.
Are you concerned? Do you believe that their current health issues may be linked to exposure that they've had? Did it start after they started attending school there?
Morgan's, yes, her exposure, her experience has started after. And Bryson, he actually was hospitalized. I think he was a 2nd grader, and he was in ICU for at least 5 days due to asthma. And we were just wondering, where is this coming from? It's not getting better, but I honestly believe that some of their health issues may be linked to the exposure of radiation.
And so you've pulled the children from school at this point, is that right?
Yes, the kids they were out of school all last week. Whenever we heard the news on Tuesday, they would start virtual learning on Monday. But moving forward, they may go to different schools, which is a huge concern. Right now we have a national crisis with bullying. It may be a concern because maybe the kids at school know that they're experiencing, the radiation issue, and maybe they're calling the kids, being mean, saying that they don't want to play with them because, they're now contaminated or they're dirty. So this is a huge issue that I don't think the school district is taking serious.
Well, I mean, that is my last question for you. Has the reaction to this situation been adequate so far in your eyes?
Absolutely no. It's no transparency. My biggest issue is, yes, it was no empathy there during the PTA meeting. But the biggest issue is, we know what's going on as far as from a education standpoint, but what about their health? No one is concerned about their health moving forward. To say to, parents that right now is no concern if you're not experiencing any health issues, maybe 30, 40 years when the cancers show up, and then you'll see possible issues. I think that's just wrong to even hear from a parent or for any health issues to say to us.
I mean, how would you put into words the emotion of this period of time? Is it just anger? Is it frustration? Is it terror? Is it fear?
I'm fearful. I'm terrified. I try to be strong in front of my kids. I explain to them what's going on. Just letting them know, hey, this is what's going on at your school. This is the reason why. And just to hear from the kids, I'm terrified of getting cancer. It hurts. And it's hard as a parent to see your kids hurt or to see them scared, fear of getting, cancer. But the lack of, help that we're getting from, the local, government, the, local officials. Where are those people? They knock on our door every single election season. They want to put, yard signs out. But where are those people now when we're crying for help for our kids?
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnation.now.
Well, this is certainly, this is a good example of how the nuclear energy industry is much better regulated than literally every other nuclear segment in our economy. And so, it came to this area had the tailings from weapons production. And so, of course, everyone's concerned about it now. it's a real thing, and we have to acknowledge the failures that happen outside the energy industry to show that there is a better way. Now, do I believe that this lady's kids have fallen ill because of that waste? I'm really hesitant to say that it's likely. I know that the doses in question are probably much lower than would reliably cause a problem. But I need to get more information about that for sure. Okay, I hope this one doesn't suck.
Medcram.com. Welcome to another MedCram lecture. Today we're going to talk about iodine and why countries are stockpiling it. That has to do with the fact that we may be having some nuclear fallout, either from a reactor or a nuclear weapon that gets deployed. And the problem is that there's going to be radiation associated with that, and we're going to talk about why iodine may be beneficial in just one area of radiation toxicity. So we're going to go back to our blackboard. I'm going to talk about the thyroid gland. Now, the thyroid gland has really just one purpose, and it's to make a substance called T4, which is later converted into T3. Just know that T3 is kind of like the oil that greases all of the processes of your body. So it's a really important organ. If you had no thyroid gland, you would die eventually. Some people who don't have good thyroid glands actually take supplementation and need to make sure that they're checking on that. But your thyroid gland needs iodine to make T4 and then T3. Iodine is extremely important. Basically, iodine gets incorporated into T4 and to T3. Where do you get iodine from? Iodine can get into your body several different ways. Obviously, food, but even air. And the iodine that we find in the regular environment is an isotope called iodine-127. Now, there are other types, but this is the major one. And this number up here is telling you how many particles, basically, of neutrons and protons are in the nucleus of the atom of iodine. The atomic number of iodine, which is the number of protons, is 53. And so you can have different numbers of neutrons in the nucleus of the iodine atom. And in this case, if you have 74, then you can see that it adds up to 127. This is basically what's going on every day in our lives. We take in iodine-127 into our thyroid gland. The thyroid gland then, as a factory, produces T4 and T3, which the body needs. If you have some sort of a nuclear event, and there's been a couple of these, unfortunately, that have happened. Japanese atomic bomb survivors. We also have the Marshall Islands, where the United States was testing nuclear ordinances, and the people there were actually getting radiated. Probably the best well-known, where we were able to do medical science on what happened after that, is Chernobyl.
Wait a minute. Being irradiated, that doesn't give you iodine. Like, just getting hit by radiation, it's when you're contaminated. That's when you're taking up bad iodine, iodine-131.
That's a disaster that occurred in Ukraine in 1986. Japanese atomic bomb released an amazing amount of radiation very quickly and then dissipated. Same with the Marshall Island. The thing that was different about Chernobyl is that it was a slow amount over a long period of time, which actually could be worse in terms of what we're about to talk about. These types of events make not iodine-127, but iodine-131, which is radioactive. It's still 53 protons, but instead of 74 neutrons, there are 78. Unfortunately, what happens with iodine-131 is that it gives off different types of radiation. One of them is gamma radiation, which is extremely high, powerful electromagnetic radiation. And the other one is beta particle, which is basically a negatively charged electron. But the problem is that when this gets incorporated into your thyroid gland, it destroys the tissue in the thyroid gland, and it alters the DNA, and it causes cancer. Specifically, it causes papillary thyroid cancer, otherwise known as PTC. We can measure this radiation, and it's measured in a unit called a gray. which is abbreviated as GY. So how much radiation...
Why don't you measure it in sieverts? Why? So, okay. So gray is the emissions from that particle, but you probably want the dose, which would be sieverts. Okay, continuing.
Potentially to get thyroid cancer, and they found that anywhere between 50 and 100 milligrays, that's also 0.050 grays. The problem here is that it can take anywhere from 5 to 10 years after the exposure to actually develop thyroid cancer. And it's particularly higher risk in people who are less than 20 years of age. This is not going to affect people who are older than 20 years as much as it is those that are less than 20. So we're looking at children who are exposed to high amounts of radiation, anything more than 50 to 100 milligrays of radiation. So they've done some research, and we'll put the link to the reference in the description below. And they looked at survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They recorded out of 105,000 people who were exposed 371 thyroid cancers between 1958 and 2005. Generally speaking, the average person in the study was about 10 years of age when they were exposed, and they were able to look at them when they were about 50 years of age. And they found that the exposure increased the risk of thyroid cancer by 28%. They also found in the study that 36% of all the thyroid cancer was attributable to exposure before the age of 20 to radiation. There is an increase, it's not a massive increase, but realize that it's an increase that can be prevented. This 131 iodine goes everywhere. It goes into the air, the trees, the cows, their milk becomes radioactive. And so breathing in air, eating food products, all of these things are ways that iodine gets into your diet. The problem is, it's the iodine 131 that's coming in. Well, the receptors for iodine 131 are identical to the receptors for iodine 127, which is the normal iodine. And so what we do here is basically a competition to exclude iodine 131 from coming into the thyroid gland. So if you take high doses of iodine 127, you can effectively block out and prevent iodine 131 from going into the thyroid gland. If you take potassium iodide, it's not going to prevent you from other types of radiation exposure. It will only prevent the issues with radiation exposure to the thyroid gland. You can't go out and get the iodine tablets after the radiation exposure because you have to do it at the same time or even before so that the iodine 131 doesn't come in and get taken up by the thyroid gland. Now let's go over some practical information for how you can acquire and know how to dose and what to do with iodine tablets. First question is going to be, how do I get them? So the good news is you don't need a prescription to purchase potassium iodide tablets. It's not a controlled substance. You can actually buy it as a nutritional supplement. But what I would recommend is digging a little bit deeper, and I don't endorse any of these particular brands, but let's see, we can click on one here, and we'll see here's a 3-pack. They come in different milligram dosages, like this one's 130 milligrams. There's also a 65 milligram version that you can buy, and we'll talk about the dosing in a little bit. You can ask questions and see whether or not the company and the factory that it's made at is FDA approved, and whether or not it's been verified by a third party. How much do I take? So this is a great website put out by New York State, Potassium Iodine and Radiation Emergencies. They have nuclear power plants in New York State, and so they actually have a rule that anybody that's within 5 or 10 miles of a nuclear power plant should have potassium iodide tablets on hand. Perhaps some of you listening can tell us a little bit more about what they've told you. Here's a great FAQ, and here's the table you should look at, and it's how much potassium iodide do I take? And so for birth to 1 month of age, they have the potassium iodide dosing, the number of milliliters of liquid, the number of 65 milligram tablets if you have them, and the number of 130 milligram tablets if you have those. And they have it here for each one of the ages. Now, we said that over the age of 20, the chances of getting thyroid cancer from radiation exposure is pretty low. It's pretty minimal. But if you want to protect yourself, that is an option that you can do. When should I start taking it? what's going to happen is there's going to be an announcement from the public health department or some local authority that's going to say, you need to start taking your potassium iodide. If you don't have it in your home, then obviously you're going to have to go out and get it, and there's going to be a big surge to get that at that time. So it's good to make sure that you have it on hand to begin with. But the short answer to this is that they will tell you when to start taking it, because the authorities actually have ways of measuring continuously the amount of radiation in the air. There's no harm in taking it beforehand, other than the risks of taking the medication, which we'll talk about. But there is a risk if you take it too late, because if you start to absorb too much I-131 before you can block it with the oral tablets, then obviously I-131 is going to go into your system. For example, you can see what the wind did to the radiation from Chernobyl back in 1986 and how it spread across Europe. This happened within hours to days to weeks. By the way, the radiation here was in the level of thousands of milligrays, so well above the 50 milligrays that would increase the risk. How long should I take it for? Well, again,
I've got a little problem with that assertion. Like, I want to look at where this chart came from. And it says multiples of normal rate. Yeah, okay, so yes, it was like immediately very bad. But 100 times normal background radiation, even that is not a huge amount. So this 5 times normal background, it's very low. Wouldn't be concerned about it. But yeah, but knowing exactly what it is, like the difference between the different isotopes that you're exposed to, that's really what the problem is. And so we have to pay attention to which isotopes they're talking about. And this amorphous blob, yes, it was probably all the same concentration of material, but just multiples of the normal dose doesn't mean a great deal to me.
Would increase the risk. How long should I take it for? Well, again, the officials monitoring the radiation in the air will let you know when those have gone down to safe levels and you don't have to take potassium iodide tablets. This could last for weeks, maybe even a month or so. And this is the reason countries are stockpiling potassium iodide. It's very cheap to make, very easy. But if there's a big demand for it, it might be difficult to get. Next question is, are there risks of taking potassium iodide? Well, if there were big risks, they probably wouldn't make it available over the counter. But are there risks of taking potassium iodide? Back to this New York State Health Department website on the topic. And they say here that in general, most people who have taken potassium iodide have not had any reactions or side effects. If people did have a reaction, it did not last very long. In a few cases, babies had a reaction in their thyroids. Adults who had reactions and stomach problems or a rash. The federal government thinks the benefits of taking potassium iodide are much greater than the risks. That would, of course, be during a nuclear incident. The corollary is question number 9. Are there some people who should not take potassium iodide? They say most people can take it, but you should talk to your doctor before taking it. Let me just tell you, as a physician, if you have a thyroid condition, you may want to talk to your doctor about this, especially if you're under the age of 20. Because you're at most risk for getting thyroid cancer from radiation exposure. But there are hyperthyroid conditions that if you were to give high doses of potassium iodide could actually flare up the hyperthyroid state. An example of that would be a Graves' disease. It's possible that if you took a lot of potassium iodide, that could flare up your hyperthyroidism. So it's important to talk to your doctor about whether or not iodine is the right thing to do. There are some people that are allergic to seafood. And there is a correlation and a connection between seafood allergies and iodine allergies as well, at least in the realm of getting iodinated contrast in the hospital. Can KI be purchased at local pharmacies? And they say here, yes, though it may not widely be available in drugstores near you. Since it is not a prescription drug, you can buy it over the internet. As with other drugs, make sure that the potassium iodide you buy has been approved by the FDA. A supply of potassium iodide has been made available to people who live within 10 miles of a nuclear power plant in the New York State area. If you live within 10 miles of a nuclear power plant and did not receive potassium iodide, contact your local Office of Emergency Management. I'll put a couple of links to some great review articles, like this one called Radiation Exposure and Thyroid Cancer, a Review. And also this article titled Radiation Exposure to the Thyroid After the Chernobyl Accident. Well, I hope this has been helpful to you and highlighted some things that you may not have known. Thanks for joining us.
That was all right. Not particularly notable, but all right. I still have to decide where I want to go for dinner tonight, because apparently it's my choice. And should I eat? Something down. Okay, so they're going to be North SeaTac. I hate to be lazy and just say 13 coins, but North SeaTac. One of these. Or if they pick me up, it will be at one of the rail stops. Not Cheesecake Factory. Okay. Show me the transit. This line. Where should I go? I have no idea. But I think I know where I'm going to go and where they can pick me up. I kind of want to go to West Seattle. Just kind of. Okay, back to Reacts. And I covered this one recently. Geez, NBC, you're freaking...
As global nuclear tensions grow, the extent of Russian threat to nuclear safety does not end at Putin's atomic weapons. Throughout the war, the Russian military has occupied nuclear power plants, a main and often sole source of power for vast regions of the country. I sat down with Petro Kotin, the Ukrainian head of all nuclear power plants in Ukraine, including the Zaporizhzhia plant, known as ZNPP. It's the largest nuclear power plant in all of Europe, and it's been under Russian control since early March. It's at the center of dangerous shelling throughout the war. While the Russians need Ukrainian staff to maintain the facilities, Kotin says workers are being tortured and killed.
The psychological situation with personnel is very bad in there, and it is very hard for them to operate the plant in these conditions, because they are actually periodically captured, tortured and beaten. One people was killed and actually beaten to death in the diver from the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Another one was just shot in his home. They just came and started shooting on him from automatic guns, and he is alive by miracle actually, but got like 5 bullets in his body. In there, and this is awful situation. Civilians against civilian nuclear personnel at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant.
Back in August, our Morgan Chesky spoke to the former plant worker allegedly shot by the Russians.
In a Zaporizhzhia hospital, former plant mechanic Serhiy Shevets told me after Russians took over in March, anyone pro-Ukraine disappeared or died. Serhiy showing where Russian bullets struck his leg, arm, stomach, and cheek.
Russia has not commented publicly on the accusations or on the situation inside the plant, other than to say they are, quote, liberating the area and taking over the management. They've also previously said Ukrainian forces were shelling the plant as well. Currently, all 6 ZNPP nuclear units at the power plant are on standby, not providing power to the region. But with a brutal Ukrainian winter coming, Kotin says at least one unit must be operational to supply heating for hundreds of thousands of people.
If they damage this infrastructure from where we get this electricity on the plant, then we will be in great danger. Melting of core, and after this meltdown of core, you have whole core, and then it will be like Chernobyl-size accident, nuclear accidents.
Wait.
The site.
Come on.
If they damage this infrastructure from where we get this electricity on the plant, then we will be in great danger. Melting of core, and after this meltdown of core, you have whole core, and then it will be like Chernobyl-size accident.
Not accurate.
Accidents.
Come on.
Chernobyl, the site of the 1986 nuclear disaster that contaminated 150,000 square kilometers in Belarus, Russia, and Ukraine, with radioactive fallout scattered over much of the northern hemisphere. 36 years later...
So, what's the difference? Come on, pay attention now. What's the difference between a core melt and a really bad immediate power excursion? One of those causes a steam explosion. The other one does not. A meltdown is not inherently dangerous. A meltdown is not automatically a Chernobyl. It could be if you're not careful. But yeah, a Chernobyl accident or a Fukushima accident would require a chemical buildup that detonates or a immediate power excursion that causes a steam explosion. Neither of those should be possible at Zaporizhzhia. You would have to cause a hydrogen buildup and ignite that hydrogen somehow.
Some areas remain uninhabitable.
During this occupation, we have already had at Zaporizhzhia 14 serious operational events, including 3 blackouts already.
If the power supply helping cool down the radioactive core is cut off, Kotin says the only thing preventing a nuclear meltdown are temporary backup generators that run on huge amounts of diesel fuel every day, fuel that is trucked in to Russian-occupied territory.
How worried should people in Ukraine be about the situation at
So after 3 days, that plant is now safe. If it's running and it's hot, and then it starts to have a problem, like if the outside power gets cut off, you'll go into island mode like they have been, with the one plant at quarter power providing backup power for the rest. And then if they're worried about that last plant, they shut it down and then they cool that one plant with the diesel generators. Or if you've got to do it immediately and for some reason have to shut down all of them, then yes, you would have to run all six reactors would have to have cooling from those diesel generators. Doesn't seem like something that should take more than 3 days. You know, you should not be in that situation for more than 3 days. So I hope they have 3 days of fuel for those all 6 reactor backup generators. If they don't, they can fix that before they start it up again.
The Zaporizhzhia power plant.
You just lose external power supply to the plant. After that, you go to blackout mode, and we need NATO. We need all the support from the international community, which can be provided here.
And tonight, Cal Perry joins us now from Kyiv. Cal, with the threat of torture or even death, why are these workers even showing up? Do they have no other choice?
Well, look, one of the issues here is it's impossible to get anywhere near this plant because it's encircled by Russian troops. The presumption is, of course, that there's only so many people who know how to work and function a nuclear power plant. The fear here is that Russia is going to divert that power back into Russia and away from Ukraine. If you look at the city behind me, Tom, it's pitch black, partly because people have been told to conserve energy. Officials saying, if you don't turn off the lights, we're going to have to start lighting the candles. Add to that, recently as last week, the deputy head of the plant was abducted, and we never heard Russia say anything about that at all.
And Cal, in other news, we mentioned you're in Kyiv. Talk to us about these kamikaze drone strikes that have been happening in the capital of Ukraine.
They've been coming in waves. This morning, there were 28 drones, officials said, fired at once from Russian positions into the capital. 23 of them, we understand, were shot down. 5 of them hitting that residential building, killing 4, wounding another 4. Dozens of people were rescued. But, Tom, we've never heard anything like this. These drones fly in low. They fly slowly. They're basically like rockets with a propeller on the back of them. People were firing their weapons into the air, trying to shoot these drones. At the beginning of the day, the city was telling people, if you see a drone, shoot it down. By the end of the day, they were saying, leave it to police, leave it to the army. It's one more indication of how the security situation here is just getting worse and worse, Tom.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's.
All right. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for hanging out. You got me for a few more minutes, a few good reacts here. I'm going to head out. I've got dinner with my family. So, unless I've got 3 people watching on Twitch, which means that my restream audience count is incorrect. Yeah. So, thanks for hanging out. I'm going to let you go. Mission first, peace and justice will follow. See ya.